I'm ready.
All right. So does anyone have any questions they want to ask first, or do they want me to go first?
Well, I do. Jen, do you got one first, or
Um, yeah. So, Gary, what would you say was your earliest artistic inspiration? How would you say they influenced you?
On this specific project or in life?
Just in life.
In
Yeah.
life. Um, Probably earliest artistic inspiration was like the Peanuts by Charles Schulz. I would copy those. I mean, I've been drawing as long as I could hold a crayon, but actual first like actual inspiration where I looked at something and said I want to do that was the comics pages in the newspaper, and then eventually, the little paperback books that they sold at the time. And Peanuts was a favorite of mine. I could Snoopy and Charlie Brown and Lucy and Linus and all of those. So, and I wasn't necessarily doing like original drawings of them. I was just copying them. Every so often, I'd try and do something, a little bit original. And I was like, well, this sucks. I'll go back to copying.
Yeah.
Um, and kind of branched from that into um, other comic strips, like I'll try and draw this one now. And then ultimately, just like found Mad Magazine and, just the artwork in there. Is probably really like wildly underrated, but is fantastic. And Sergio Aragonés became one of my biggest influences, um, to this day.
Nice. And I
That's
told,
really nice.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
I told Kieran this, but since you and Jen are here now, I will tell you that sometime after I release this documentary on YouTube, I will release the full interview as a bonus feature. So any questions that aren't related to the subject of the documentary people will still hear the answers to them and stuff.
mm,
Okay.
All right.
just saying it for posterity?
Yeah.
Thanks.
My question is, how did Atlantis, the Lost Empire, come into being?
I mean, this is like a story that's reasonably well known.
Yeah.
We've told this one before, but um, Kirk and I were this was after Hunchback had been moderate success, not not wildly not as successful as the studio had hoped, but we were still kind of in the good graces of the studio, and so we were kind of coasting for a little while. And it was Don Hahn, our producer, that said, if you guys want to keep your same crew together, and if you want to do a film that you want to do rather than being told what to do, we should probably sit down and figure this out. Figure out what our next project is going to be. Because I wanted to work with Kirk and Don again. I mean, we all wanted to work together again. We'd worked with Tab before. We wanted to work with him. But beyond that, there was like all of our supervisors and animators and things like that we had, been worked on for two pictures and wanted to do a third with them. Lisa Keene and Ed Gertner and um, Chris Jenkins and Marlon West. Like all these guys that were like, these guys are effing great. We don't want them to just like go off to Ron and John land,
Yeah.
and start working. Because the studio at that time, it was like they were on parallel tracks. It was like the Ringling Circus. You got the East Coast and the West Coast, and they're basically the same circus, but they're on different tracks and do different parts of the country. That's how Disney was, and we'd all work in the same building. We see each other, but we wouldn't work with each other. We didn't work with each other with a lot of these people since Beauty and the Beast. That was the last one where uh, we had everybody together. So, um, as the story goes, and the story is 100% true, we retired to a Mexican restaurant in Burbank and sat there with, I don't know how many pitchers, multiple pitchers of margaritas and nachos and things like that. It was Tab Murphy, Kirk Wise, Don Hahn, and myself, and we just started talking like, okay, what do we want to do? What We don't really want to do another musical. We've done a couple of those, and um, you know, they were successful, but they're also, you know, the other productions are doing them too. And we're starting to see the pattern, you know, you're starting to see the Disney musical, Disney Broadway pattern, and it's still working, but people are going to get a little tired of this. You know, we want to do something different. So we started to ask each other, well, what kind of movies would we want to do if it wasn't a musical? And we talked about the live action movies that Disney Studios had done, like in the late 50s and early 60s, like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Swiss Family Robinson and Island at the Top of the World and ones like that, that we thought were great, you know, which you couldn't make with a G rating today because, you know, there was some violence in them and there was like harsh tones of voice, you know, which terrifies some people. So we said, well, let's do that. You know, the 20,000 Leagues, that's a Jules Verne thing. And Jules Verne has got some cool stuff like Journey to the Center of the Earth. Let's look into that. And while it's a really cool concept and idea, the actual story is kind of dull. It's not a great story. You know, there's a lot of blundering around in pitch dark and, you know, just like internal soul searching, and it just wasn't that fun. And or like looking at the giant mushrooms. Oh, okay, there's some giant mushrooms. And then ultimately they didn't get to the center of the earth. They got, I don't know, somewhere down there, and then decided to bug out because it was getting scary. So it was like kind of unsatisfying. And we thought, okay, so what if we're not going to the center of the earth? What if we're looking for Atlantis? And that's how those ideas kind of came together. That was the goal, rather than the center of the earth, the molten core, or the hollow earth, or, you know, whatever was going to be down there. We're going to look for Atlantis. And so, since there's no real definitive correct story about Atlantis, the legend of Atlantis, we were pretty free to make up shit as we went. So we did. And yeah, that's how we got to that.
Nice.
Very nice. So yeah, Atlantis is definitely a far cry from the types of movies you worked on before. So what kind of new challenges did this give you as a director? What was like your favorite thing about the experience?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, the good and the bad was that it was an original story. You know, Beauty and the Beast is patterned after Beauty and the Beast. You know, I mean, there's a number of different versions of that story dating back to like ancient Rome. And, you know, that obviously the details change, but it's still basically, you know, a girl and a monster find love, you know, and change each other. Hunchback of Notre Dame was based on classic French literature. You know, you can't stray too far from it, although we did. You know, but at the same time, we wanted to be careful not to stray too far from it because we didn't want to piss off all of France by, you know, tromping all over their beloved literature in our big Hollywood cartoon boots. So, you know, we tried to stay as faithful to it and as respectful to it as we could, but still knowing that this was a Disney movie that's going to be for families. You know, not everybody's going to die. With Atlantis, it's like sky's the limit, guys. We can do whatever we want. And to be sure, we went down some blind alleys. You know, we got kind of caught up in the weird, strange underworld aspect of it, and it was at one point it was called a monster parade because we just had, you know, just so many weird underground creatures, and we screened it and it was like, no, this isn't gonna work. Number one, it's too expensive. Number two, it's too long. Number three, we don't get to Atlantis until like, you know, 40 minutes into the picture because we're wallowing in all this other, you know, cool stuff, admittedly, but not Atlantis. So it was a lot of editing and focusing and like trying to channel the story to be where it should be without any guidelines. So again, I mean, that can be really fun, and it was, and it can be really, really terrifying, which it was.
All right, cool.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
It's really cool.
Yeah. For the movie, and you already sort of mentioned this in a way. You avoided a lot of the stereotypical Greek aesthetic a lot of people associate with Atlantis, do something more unique and creative. What was the process of like creating an entire culture from scratch almost? Like
why we went the direction we did?
Yeah, and what was it like? What were some challenges or stuff like that?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, one of the few things that you know, if you call up, and at the time the internet was a little more rustic, but you know, there was no Google back then. There was like 30 different search engines. So you know, you go to Ask Jeeves or Bing, or you know, whatever was available back then. And there was a lot of things to search on Atlantis, and most of them had, you know, what we came to call the aquarium version of Atlantis, you know, like the Acropolis front and the Greek columns, and we knew we didn't want to do that, but we didn't know what we did want to do. So we kind of backed up and said, so who are these guys? Excuse me. There's you can edit that out.
No worries.
So there's also, you know, legends of other civilizations back then. You know, there's Lemuria and Mu, and you know, these other ancient civilizations. So we thought, okay, it's got to be something that can stand up. You know, it's like probably the original civilization before Babylon, before, you know, any of these other things, you know, that are like 10 to, you know, 12,000 years ago. We're going to go back way further than that and say, let's say this is like, you know, an original civilization that everything came from. So it's not going to go just Greek. We wanted to bring in influences in architecture and the physical characteristics of the people and the language and everything we could think of. Like we want to, bad word, mash it all together. We wanted it to have elements of a lot of different things, which is why we went with like Southeast Asian and a little bit of Mesoamerican and a little bit of African and, you know, a touch of European. So we threw in a lot of different things, and that's kind of where that came from. And then we found, well, we didn't find, we knew of Mike Mignola, the comic illustrator and illustrator, most well known for the Hellboy comics. Kirk and I were both huge fans of his, and we said we should ask him if he wants to do this. So we did, and he did, and so he was fantastic with you know, ideas of like how to steer the architecture and how to steer the design process. So I mean, it wasn't, we may have come up with an idea, let's make it an original civilization, a cradle civilization, but that was kind of as far as we went. We didn't say then make it, you know, the angles like this, and we gave it to our art crew and they just ran with it. And so we give like huge amounts of credit to our art directors and our designers, you know, that once kind of put on the path, they just like delivered in spades.
Yeah.
Did that
Nice.
decision to kind of go with something original, basically everything you just said, that also tied into the decision to make up an Atlantean language writing, a conlang as well?
Correct. Yeah. And we, I mean, this is also reasonably well known. We procured the services of Mark Ockrent, who is linguist to the stars. He's an actual like real life Smithsonian linguist. And he, at the time, he was working on a passion project of his, which was deciphering and translating and inscribing languages, like dead languages from California Indian tribes. And he was really excited because they had just recently found a wax cylinder from like 1901 or something like that that had somebody actually speaking one of these languages on it, and so you could actually hear it, like one of the original speakers of this language, which was a dead language. So, but I digress. So he was also known for creating the languages in Star Trek, the Klingon and the Romulan and Vulcan languages. And he wrote books about them, like how to speak Klingon, which he said was the biggest mistake he ever made in his life, because he said now people come up and correct him. So,
Oh my God.
yeah. But he has been invited to like Klingon weddings and performances of King Lear and things like that, all in Klingon. So, you know, good, bad. But his thinking was also, you know, okay, well, let's see where, you know, where the languages, you know, what this kind of language structure and these kind of words, you know, sounds, and this kind of grammatical. So he was picking and choosing from different places as well, both for the written language and for the spoken language. And he had said, yeah, I mean, written language was not around for a long time, and then all of a sudden, a lot of different places all at once kind of like got the idea. You know, it was like this weird little spark in human evolution. Everybody said we should write this down, but he said people originally had a lot of strange ideas about how to write language. You know, it's like there's the cuneiform clay tablets, there's papyrus, there's notched sticks, there's, you know, like different like kinds of sculptures. He said
Hipu.
it's pretty crazy. So so it was like coming up with an alphabet, and do we read it left to right? Do we read it up and down? Do we when you go one line, do you go back and start at the beginning again? Do you go serpentine? Because he said all of these things happened. So that was, you know, we left that to him. He talking to him was like we're getting college credits every time we talked to him, because it was so fascinating.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah. Well, what was it like working with the cast?
Oh, the cast is great. I mean, Kirk and I have been blessed. Like every production we've had, we've had great cast members, and this one as well. You know, working with Michael J. Fox, he was just like super to work with, super nice, super like, you know, additive to like the process and the character and things like that. Don Novello was hilarious as Vinny. He was one that you would write the line and you would get one reading as written, and then he would just do like a million different ad libs and takes, and we were just like, shit, what do we pick? You know, there's so much good stuff here. Jim Varney was the same way for doing Cookie. We thought we could do a Cookie movie with all the outtakes. We had so much like extra stuff of his. Leonard Nimoy was, you know, that kind of super intimidating, because, you know, he's like not only an icon, but he's like also a really respected director as well. And you know, here's Kirk and I, the cartoon guys, like, okay, Mr. Nimoy, how about if you say, you know, and but you know, total professional, totally great. Cree Summer, same thing. I mean, they were all. Claudia Christian was hilarious as Helga, but I mean, she was one that like between takes, she would just have us rolling because she's just incredibly funny. They were all just great. Phil Morris was that way too. He was just really funny, and he was somebody that people that watch Seinfeld, he was Kramer's lawyer in the Seinfeld series. He was Jackie Childs, the lawyer. And this is the first time I ever witnessed the phenomenon of the Clark Kent Superman phenomenon, where if you just put on a pair of glasses and comb your hair, people won't recognize you, even though that's all you did. And he could do that, you know, because he came in and he's like wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and he's like, hey, how's it going, guys? Yeah, we're ready. And for some reason, somebody asked him about Jackie Childs, and he just changed, like in front of our eyes, he just changed. And it's like, oh my God. And he was unrecognizable. He didn't change his clothes, anything, just his demeanor and his expression and how he carried himself. So he was really great to work with too. So
Nice.
yeah, I mean, everybody, Jack on Oberdorf's, David Sayers, who was our good luck charm ever since Beauty and the Beast. We wanted to give him a part in everything we did. And thank God the rest of the studio thought that too, so he started showing up in the other movies as well. But we always wanted to have David. So yeah, I mean, it was a great experience. Corey Burton as Moliere, somebody else that we worked with from way back when Kirk and I started. Our very first gig was a pre-show for Cranium Command in Walt Disney World, and Corey was he was one of our stars in that, and we developed a relationship, and we just loved him, and yeah, so we knew we had to find a role for him as well. And yeah, it was a great experience. It was a great cast.
Awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, really wonderful cast.
Who wants to go next?
I was, I don't know. I guess, you mentioned, so many different takes and lines that didn't get in. Can you remember any particular one that was your favorite?
Like outtakes?
Yeah. Or just any, even if it did make it into the movie or not, just any particular one.
I don't. I mean, we would always encourage our cast to feel free to ad lib, or to change the lines, to do what was comfortable for them, and not just strictly stick to the written word. If you could please, read it as written once, just so we have it. But after that, if you want to just run with it, if you want to tweak it, you want to change it, please feel free. And David Sayers was another one who would do that. And the best example, and this wasn't from Atlantis, this was way back from Beauty and the Beast, but to me, the funniest line in that movie was he came up with.
I think I know, but we'll see.
Yeah, you probably do. I mean, I've told this story before, where the Beast and the candle and the clock are looking down at the snowy backyard of the castle, and Belle is walking the horse, and Beast says, "I want to do something for her, but what?" And then it was Cogsworth's turn to answer, and David said, "All right, just a second." And he was like, he took about 3-4 minutes, and he wrote a bunch of stuff down, and he had like 6 lines, and one of them was, the usual things, flowers, chocolates, promises you don't intend to keep, and we just died. And said, okay, that's it. I don't even know what the original line was, but and I don't remember what the other also ran lines were. It was that one just blew everything else out of the water. So, but that's, yeah. I mean, we like doing that. Don Novello, God, he was just great. The whole corsages on the wrist for a prom. I think that was his line. Jim Varney, one of his ad lib lines that we said, oh, we got to use that, is when Milo's sneaking off to take a crap, and he tiptoes past Cookie, who's kind of mumbling in his sleep, and he goes, redhead's got a gun. And we went, where the hell did that come from? So yeah, we kept it. But that's, yeah, I mean, there were so many, I can't remember the outtakes. There were just a zillion of them. And even at that, when Jim passed away, we still had to bring in a sound-alike actor for his final line, for the bacon grease from the whole trip was a sound-alike.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, was Jim Varney's last project Atlantis? Because I know he passed some time around 2000, right?
Yeah, it was his last project. He didn't even see it all the way 100% through. He got 99% there.
Damn.
And even at that, his last few sessions, he was wearing a bandana because his hair was gone from chemo,
Yeah.
He literally only had one lung left. And he said, yeah, I feel fine. You know, I've got, I think they were giving him like adrenaline shots or something like that. So he was like energetic and fine and up and everything. But I mean, probably when he went home, he would go down again. But with us, he was always great. And I know he did Slinky Dog right before us. So it was like Slinky Dog and Cookie were like his last two. And I think with us, I think he finished Slink, but with us, he just got it like to the finish line, but couldn't quite cross it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good note to go out on, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know if this is a sensitive question. The film is beloved today, and most people I know loved it when it came out too. Unfortunately, at the time it came out, it didn't do well financially, which matters for some people, you know, but do you think you might have any theories as what could have led to this, like marketing issues or anything?
Well, I mean, it was a departure for Disney, which was doing like 100% musicals at the time. And here's something that was not a musical. It had a lot of gunfire in it, and this also came out right around the time of the Columbine shooting. So you know that was very much in the public consciousness at the time. It looked a little different because we had a lot of design elements that Mike Mignola used. So like the squared off, more angular look, and we wanted. I specifically wanted it to look less like a digital or a painterly, the kind of soft edge and airbrushed
Less
and
storybook.
yeah. I wanted it to look like a comic book. I wanted it to look like graphic, and Dave Getz and Mike Mignola worked together and came up with this look. So instead of a shading across an object or a plane or whatever, they would have like layers of specific color that wouldn't necessarily blend with each other, but they were close to each other. But if you look at them, you go, oh, that's it's not shaded. It's layered. So it had a much more graphic look to it, which kind of bothered some people. They weren't like real crazy about that. We got comments like, "What's with the square fingers?" Like, well, come on, guys. Are the performances throwing you off? Oh no, they characters are good. But yeah, I mean, it was a combination of all of those things. Yeah, I mean, probably the big one was that it wasn't quite what people expected. That people had an expectation of what a Disney film was, and you take the kids and they sing along, and you bounce along, and there's talking animals, and we didn't have any of that. It was it was and to be honest, this kind of worried the executives when we first pitched it, because they said, "What? This isn't a fantasy. It's not a fairy tale. It's not. There's no songs. There's no princesses or talking rabbits or anything like that." And we said, "Well, Disney has been doing Fantasyland movies, for the last 60 years. But when you go into Disneyland and you're headed towards the castle, if you hang a left, you go into Adventureland, and we want to do an Adventureland movie." And that's what sold them. We said, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense. It's still Disney canon. It still, works under the big tent of Disney." So the public didn't see it that way, unfortunately. But what are you going to do?
That's go ahead.
I'm super grateful that people still like it today. That people basically your age, who were like little kids when you probably saw it the first time, liked it. Parents didn't like it as much, because like I said, it did not meet their expectations. But the kids were like, "This is great," so they watched it and grew up remembering it, and so it's got kind of a second life. And like I said, I'm extremely grateful.
Yeah, that whole era, what I think is even some of the movies I'm not as into, What I love about all of them is they're all so unique for the Disney. They're so their own thing, like the buddy comedy, an adventure movie, a Western, you know, they're all so different from what was being done in the Renaissance, which I also loved, but it was nice to see something unique for each
Right.
movie.
I mean, honestly, we weren't trying to buck the system or anything. We weren't trying to like, oh, Disney sucks, we want to do our own thing.
No.
We were trying to expand it. We're trying to like make it more inclusive to people that didn't necessarily like singing princesses as much. Let's do an Adventureland thing. Let's expand the audience. And it didn't work out the way we wanted, but what are you gonna do?
It's still true to what Walt said. You got to keep moving forward, try new things, and
Unfortunately, he died.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one thing you can't move forward.
What would Walt have done? So, and there's still an element of that.
Yeah.
Never really went away. It just depends on who's there that can go, well, let's try something. You know, how strong those voices are. Don Hahn was a great advocate for let's try something different. And he was up there enough that he could convince people. He had the ear of of the higher ups. And he was like super charming and articulate and could convince people.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions? Because I'm trying to think of more.
I guess out of all your films, which one would you say was your favorite, or which is the one you would want to go back and maybe try to, I don't know, redo again if you wanted to?
I mean, that's a question I've heard before, and I always hate it because it's like, which of your kids is your favorite? So
Sorry.
I mean, Beauty was our first one, and you never forget your first. And but there was also there was an element of well, A, we didn't know what we were doing, and B, we were kind of rushed, because we came on that process after it had been in production for a year already overseas in London, and the studio scrapped that, and so a 3-year production schedule became a 2-year production schedule, and that's when Kirk and I got thrown onto it. It was accelerated, and some of the stuff felt a little rushed, and some of the things, there are some scenes in there I would like to redo. And when we did the additional song, when we added the
Human Again.
Human Again version, we were allowed to go in and pick a few scenes that just were driving us insane and to redo them or to fix them, or like the cleanup on this is awful, can we fix it a little bit, or the animation on this has always bugged me, but we were in a rush, can we redo that scene? So we had I don't know, half a dozen scenes that we were able to fix. I mean, John Lasseter said it best because he said that if we were allowed to, we'd never let these things go. We would monkey around with them forever. And there's a reason why they call it a release, is because you gotta let it go. So
Absolutely, yeah.
And he's right. Because we honestly will never be happy with it. It'll never be perfect.
Perfectionism.
Give it a chance. We'll just keep ticking around with it. So but so Hunchback, I love because it was still within that Disney musical formula, but it was also we tried to kind of up the ante. We tried to make it a little more sophisticated and a little more a little more adult,
darker.
Well, I mean, it was coming from a really dark place to begin with. Victor Hugo's novel was super dark. And so we did lighten it, and just some people didn't care for some of the touches we did. The talking gargoyles being one of the main ones. Even in Victor Hugo, though, Quasimodo talked to the gargoyles, and we thought, oh, for Christ's sake, this is Disney, they should talk back. So so they did. The singing gargoyles, Yeah, I mean, I get people's gripe with that, but at the same time, things have been going so heavy for so long in the movie. We thought we gotta lighten it up for just a minute here, just give
Yeah.
a breath of relief for just a minute. So that's kind of where that came from. I'm super proud of that movie, and there's like
Yeah.
some of the best stuff, that I think Disney's done in that movie.
Yeah.
James
Agree.
Agree.
Yeah.
animating,
Absolutely.
yeah, James Baxter animating Quasimodo climbing up the cathedral with Esmeralda over his shoulder.
Yeah.
And the camera spinning around for the sanctuary moment. It's like, oh my god. Using the herd technology that they used for the wildebeest stampede in Lion King for the crowd, the celebrating crowd. There were cartoon drawings of that, of just Plopon and Quasimodo and Esmeralda in a herd of wildebeest in the square in front of Notre Dame. It's like got a bug in the system somewhere. But and in Atlantis, I mean, just because it was such a departure, from the other stuff, and it was like really from the ground up our own creation. Yeah, like love that one a lot. Love the characters. I really like the story. As the thing with with animation, they always feel a little bit rushed.
Yeah.
At least the American animation. I won't say just Disney because it's an American animation thing. They have, there are buildings full of accountants that have this figured out, to the last nickel, like how much each drawing costs to draw. And time really does mean money. Time equals money. So if you're doing a 10-second scene, it costs this much. If you're doing a 4-second scene, it costs this much. Well,
Yeah.
how much we want to spend, so one of my least favorite things in all the movies is making the cuts. Having it to a length where we like it, but then having to cut it down because the budget and the executives say it can't be this long.
Yeah.
So that's why we get criticisms that, well, gosh, the pace feels so rushed. It's like, well, we got a lot of story to tell and not a lot of time to tell it, and we don't want to shortchange anything, but at the same time we don't want to rush anything. So it's always finding that balance, and that's with all of them. So which one is my favorite? I don't have a favorite. They're all my favorites for different reasons on different days.
Best answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Was it, since we brought up like the sort of mixing of 3D and Hunchback, I was curious, what was the transition like from doing like a lot of 2D at Disney with some mixed 3D in there, and then looking over your credits, going on to do stuff for DreamWorks, like directing Shrek the Halls and the Madagascar Christmas shorts and stuff like that?
Right. It was pretty terrifying. It was, because I didn't know what I was doing. When we were incorporating 3D into things like Hunchback or Atlantis, or even Beauty, which was like really early clanky 3D, but it was there.
Yeah.
The ballroom.
The ballroom.
Mm.
We wanted to do the forest for the wolf chase in 3D, but that just crashed and burned. So we kept that traditional. So yeah, I mean, it was a difficult transition. When I first went to DreamWorks, I was on Kung Fu Panda, the first one, and just like trying to get through this thicket of rules and different ways of thinking for like how to design the characters. When I got onto the project, it had the characters were already designed, and then we're going to start to build them. But we had an associate producer saying, well, you can't do that. You can't have animals with fur and clothes. Well, what can we have? Well, you can have anything you want. You just have to choose. It's like, well, I choose fur and clothes. Well, you can't do that. It's like, God damn it. It was so frustrating. And so I eventually got fired off that picture. But, going on to Shrek or Shrek the Halls and Scared Shrekless and the Penguins and these other things, I kind of had to learn to let go a little bit. I mean, I've never been super hands-on. I've always really early on in directing, I had the opportunity to meet Chuck Jones, and he gave us this some of the best advice I've had, and I pass on, is don't try and do everything yourself. You know, let your crew, who is usually better at what they do than you are at what they do, let them do their job. Let them, you know, give them the freedom, because if they got artistic freedom, they're going to be happier, and it's going to show up on the screen, and they're going to make you look good. And you know, so instead of like micromanaging and trying to control everything, I would, you know, I was happy to let people like show me what you got. You know, let's see what you can do. That isn't to say I like totally took a back seat, but he was right. You know, if you got a crew that is enjoying what they do, and they've got some freedom with what they're doing and are invested in what they're doing, it shows up on the screen. And people think I'm smart then. So, but the thing was, with 2D, I could kind of do almost everything in the process. You know, there was like, I could do layout, I could do special effects. I did special effects. You know, I could do storyboard. I could animate. You know, I'm a shitty painter, but I can paint. You know, all of these different things I could do. When it all went digital, I didn't have a clue, and I was like, I don't know. You know, I don't know what to say. And a colleague said, you don't have to worry about anything. You're a director. All you got to do is shout and wave your arms around. So it's like, that kind of calmed me down a little bit. I mean, part of me was like, really? That's what you think we do? But at the same time, it was like, okay, yeah, I mean, just stand back and trust the process, trust your people. So that's kind of where it went. I mean, I was still super involved in storyboarding and editorial and sound design, you know, things like that, which hadn't changed that much. But when I got to like modeling and rigging and animating, you know, all of that stuff, it's like, okay, you guys take it away. Show me when you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
go ahead.
I completely sympathize with the whole like letting your crew take on like their duties and so on, because like I studied film in college and I had to do a short film that was like a documentary thing, and I was just like, guys, you know what your jobs are. You're the camera guy, you're the production design. Do what you think looks best, and if I think it looks nice, then brilliant. Okay, on with the shooting.
If I've got another idea, you know, if you set up a shot and I think, can we shoot it more from above? You know, okay, I'll open my mouth. But yeah, I mean, I don't really subscribe to the auteur method of filmmaking.
Yeah, it's a collaborative medium, so
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And animation is a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of moving people.
What I was going to ask next was, or I don't know if it was a question so much as just this observation that you could talk about. I think that Beauty and the Beast, Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Atlantis all have like some of the most realistic villains in the Disney animated canon. So what was it like coming up with those characters?
For Beauty, the character Gaston was really a distillation of, you know, from quote unquote original, you know, the more well-known fairy tales and the Jean Cocteau version from 1940s France. There was no single character like Gaston. It was usually Belle had sisters and they all had suitors who all kind of like cast their gaze towards Belle at some point. But it was early on in the process. I believe when it was being produced in London, there were multiple guys like that. And then when Howard and Alan came onto it, Howard Ashman said, "Oh, this is bullshit. Let's just like, you know, crunch all these guys down into one, like crunch these three little assholes into one big asshole." And that's how Gaston like came into being. And Howard had a lot to do with, you know, how Gaston you know, presented himself. So I mean, we knew the type, the kind of like charismatic bully
Yeah.
that that everybody loves except people that have half a brain.
Yeah.
So I mean, we knew that type, and so it wasn't that difficult to write for. With Frollo, there was like kind of a template in the books, or in the book in Victor Hugo's book, but in the book it was the archdeacon, and there was no minister of justice. And we said, well, we don't really want to go up against the Catholic Church. Let's turn him into a politician. Everybody hates politicians, so we turned him into a politician who had a very religious bent, a very self-righteous and narrow-minded vision, and again, super relatable. There's a lot of that going on, and so yeah, I mean, it was just like taking what we knew and how we know people can be. And the other thing with not as much with Gaston, a little bit with Gaston, but certainly with Frollo and with Rourke, is the best villains don't think they're villains. The best villains think they're the good guy. They're doing what's right. They're saving everybody. They're the ones who are protecting your best interest and doing the greatest good. And it's these other people that are like, they're getting in the way and they're thwarting my my good works. Hitler was, I mean, Mussolini was that way. These guys, they think they're the ones that are doing the great thing, or maybe they don't, but they just say they are. But that's something we wanted to put into Frollo.
They're right in their own mind, essentially.
Right. They don't see themselves as the bad guy.
Yeah, I remember Rourke having that great line where Milo's calling him out about dismantling this culture, all in the name for a profit, and Rourke just in like, I prefer to call it capitalism, which just really
adventure capitalism.
Yeah.
Well, and the other line, which was like probably like 2 lines either before or after that, was he said, if you take every stolen object out of a museum, you'd be left with an empty building. And that's pretty much true. He wasn't wrong. So yeah, I mean, that's that kind of thing, like little bits of truth, whether you agree with it or not, help to strengthen the character.
I think I'm out of questions, so if anyone else has any more they want to ask.
I guess just, I don't know. I just have some of the typical questions written down, like what advice would you give to other young artists or directors and that sort of thing.
It's a weird time in the industry right now. I mean, it was a weird time 10 years ago when when digital technology was taking over a lot of the hand-drawn stuff 10, 20 years ago. And my advice at that time was don't ignore the traditional storytelling and traditional methods of doing animation and drawing and things like that, because that's where a lot of the strength of digital animation and these things lie, is in strong poses, strong acting, strong silhouettes, that kind of thing, good layouts, good dynamics, and whether you do it with a pencil or a pixel, it's still got to end up on the screen. It's like learn the tools, learn the new tools. Don't ignore the old ones, but learn the new ones, because it's still got to get up on the screen. Somebody had asked, what's the difference between directing a cartoon and live action, and it took me a long time to figure that one out, because I got that question a lot early on, and I didn't really have a good answer, but ultimately came up with it's all the same choices. You're still making the exact same choices, whether it's digital, whether it's live action, whether it's hand drawn. whatever you see is going to end up on the screen. Whether that character is wearing a blue dress or a red dress, whether it's rainy or sunny, whether you're on a mountainside or the seaside, these choices have to be made and executed differently, because you're going to get a location scout, or you're going to get a painter, or you're going to get a digital, rendition of it. But it's still the same choice, and it's still going up on the screen. Now, with AI, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
The best thing I can say is get in front of it. Don't be terrified of it. Don't let it bully you over, because it seems like we're in kind of a lead, follow, or get out of the way kind of situation. And follow doesn't seem like a good option with AI. And so figure it out, learn it, master it. That's the best I can say. And I don't know how, but that's what needs to be done. I see on Facebook a lot. I'm old, so I still do Facebook.
I mean, that's how this happened. So
right. But
Mhm.
a lot of my colleagues and a lot of my contemporaries absolutely hate AI and are railing against it. It's like, resist, don't post any AI art, or I'm gonna unfriend you. It's like, for fuck's sake, man. I mean, this is what it is. This is where we're going now. You can't say, well, don't look at photography because painting is the only way to go.
Yeah.
This technology is going to do this, and it's going to keep doing this. So you get used to it, or you just you spend the rest of your days as a crazy cat lady, and just like, or Grandpa Simpson, just like shaking your fist at
Old
clouds.
man yelling at clouds.
Yeah, old man yelling at
Yeah.
clouds. My day. So yeah, I mean, it's tough to figure out, like, okay, so what do you do? That's the puzzle. That's
you froze.
the
There you go.
challenge. But that's kind of what, as far as I know, what needs to be done. Okay, go ahead.
Oh
You were
no,
saying?
that's just
Oh yeah,
you
I think the
froze
camera
a
froze for a
little
bit.
It just froze
Oh,
for a
okay.
little bit,
Okay.
so I was saying you froze, but then
fine.
it stopped. It was very
Oh.
short, so I heard what
Yeah,
you
no
said.
worries.
Yeah, we heard you, and I probably should have saved that for last, but it just came to me, and I don't know.
No,
Working
that's a
at
great question.
no, I thought of another question, but if that's the note we want to end on,
Editing,
it's
sure.
okay. What?
I'm
Okay.
fine with whatever you want to say.
I know a lot of your projects you worked with Kirk Wise, and how is it working? Working with another director on the same projects, which I know is usually the norm in animation, because, like you said, there's so many people. It's a very collaborative effort, but yeah, how is it that you two really kind of like formed kind of like a dream team in in terms of Disney animation?
Well, I mean, we'd gone to college together. He was a couple years behind me at Cal Arts, so we knew each other, and we kind of knew each other's, like, sense of humor and drawing style and things like that from college. Um, After that, we kind of went separate ways again until we came back together at Disney. And he was an animator, and I was in special effects and then storyboard. Then he got into storyboard, and then we started working closely again. Um, so um, gosh, we I think the first, like, real big project we worked on together was Rescuers Down Under, and we were both on the story team at that, and we both got fired from that at the same time because we had a bad attitude. And so we were asking uncomfortable questions. They said, you guys need to go someplace else. So we got put into the development department, which eventually led to us going on to Cranium Command together. That happened because we were both storyboarding together, and we got, our supervisor ran in and said, here's this project. It's a disaster. We need to rethink it, reconceive it, and board it this week. So Kirk and I reboarded it. And when the original director of that project moved on to, like, a Roger Rabbit short, Kirk and I were the only ones that knew anything about it, and they said, okay, you guys are directing. So we were kind of thrown into it, like, not like saying, hey, you want to try our hand at directing together. We were just like, you guys go. And it worked out because, like I said, we knew each other. We had very similar sense of humor. We similar taste in movies. So that all worked out. So we trusted each other. When we got onto beauty, it was kind of out of necessity that we split duties because of the time crunch and the amount of work that needed to be done. So Kirk's strength was in animation and performance and the cleanup, and mine was in layout and special effects. So we would both work with storyboards. We would both work with the editorial. We both worked with with the actors and the recording. But when it came down to actual production nuts and bolts, I worked with layout. He did animation and cleanup. Then I would go back in with the effects, and then we both went into color, like color background and the final cut, music, editing, all that. But we trusted each other. So, and this is not something that I can say about every other director I've worked with. But Kirk and I got along very well. We trusted each other. We complimented each other, and we knew that the other person wouldn't get bent out of shape if I saw an animation scene and said, could he be like a little more aggressive in this scene, or he would look at a special effects scene or a layout and say, could we tilt the angle and maybe so we respected each other's opinion and we respected each other's abilities, so it worked out.
That's great. So I think that's all the questions I've got. So
Yeah, I'm done with mine. So do you have any more, Ciarán?
I mostly just had, I think, the DreamWorks one because
Oh,
I was just curious with that.
okay.
But yeah.
Right. Well, then I don't know.
Is there anything else we just want kind of generally to talk about, or?
It's up to you all.
I mean, I don't have anything. This is your show, so.
True, yeah.
yeah.
I'm probably gonna take a nap in a little bit.
Are you guys all on the East Coast, or where are you?
I'm not. I'm from Ireland.
I'm East Coast, New York.
You New York, you Ireland?
Yeah. Like you can kind of tell it's nighttime right now. It's like
Yeah.
what, 9 o'clock now? So
when you say Ireland, you're saying Ireland, right?
yeah, like Dublin. Like
Dublin. Okay.
yeah, I know accents. It's weird. Like I sound mostly American,
Oh,
but
I
that's just
know
'cause
Ireland. We were in Dublin some years ago, and the girl that was taking us around, she said, yeah, she'd had some Americans, that she was taking around. And they said, where are you from? She said, I'm from Ireland. And they said, oh, Arlington? No, Ireland.
yeah. Like I know I don't sound the most Irish, but that's just because I watched a lot of Disney growing up, so my accent just kind of morphed into more of an American sounding thing.
A little bit,
I blame
yeah.
Toy Story mostly, but
Quite a bit.
it is what
Quite
it
a
is.
bit, actually.
Yeah.
But you're in Dublin.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm from Dublin. Born and raised. Parents are all Irish.
Right.
So yeah, I just tend to hang out with a lot of Americans online. It's just kind of my lifestyle these days.
And
It's weird.
there's your accent right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was in Dublin once and just loved it. So.
Oh yeah, brilliant country. Wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
Yeah.
Though that is biased, but it is what it is.
I'd say Edinburgh gives you a run for your money.
Oh no, yeah, I've been to Edinburgh as well. You're right. Such a great country. I need to go back there at some stage.
Yeah. It's just a hop for you.
I mean, yeah, literally just like a short plane ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had family visit before, so.
We did in 2018, a group of friends and I who are in a whiskey club. We did a distillery tour of Scotland, and
nice.
From Campbelltown you can see Northern Ireland. It's like right across the water. It's like, hey, shit, that's Ireland right there. So
yeah,
that was pretty cool.
And I am from North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yep.
My brother is in Virginia, about 40 miles from the border.
Yeah.
Nice.
Really cool.
And this is live from Lake Arrowhead, California.
Cool.
Nice.
which doesn't look like anything other than just a house at this point.
Yeah.
Just trust us, it's California.
I'm used to people being in their house. So in fact, one time someone was I was interviewing someone at Disney Now, and they were in their office, and I was like, whoa. And we had to make sure there was nothing on their wall from anything that hadn't
No
come out
upcoming
yet.
project spoilers at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. And behind them was an Olaf cutout, and I said, "Oh, that's a character from the unreleased movie Frozen 4."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been on Zooms where you're having a Zoom meeting, right? Not this is an interview. This is nice. But meetings are a little more say casual, and people like, from their car, so the camera's like sitting next to them, kind of looking up their nose at the roof of the car, and maybe street lights going overhead. So yeah, technology.
Yeah, it's a wonder.
Yeah.
I do hope they can get to
what I
Kevin
said about
Bacon.
AI, it's like, God, it's people don't know what to do with it. The people are either terrified of it, or they're like, they're nervous about it because of the freedom that it gives, like studio executives who've been looking to get rid of pesky, artists and creatives for generations. And now they finally can. They get Chat GPT or one of these other programs and say, I want to do a heavy metal band with rabbits, and it spits it out. And so people are justifiably nervous about this. But,
so many ethics involved. I mean, there's that thing that happened where some guys put together an AI comedy special using George Carlin, and now the estates are suing them for that. Which I'm kind of like on the family side on that one. Just
I heard
using
about that,
a person who's been passed is that's not right about them.
Yeah.
Also,
it's different when sorry, Micah, to cut you off, but it's different when, say, the way they handled the genie in Once Upon a Studio, like
that's not AI. That's just
like they went to Robin Williams' estate and be like, "Hey, can we use some of the leftover audio that has just been sitting in the Disney Vault for a while?" It's like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead," and it worked out great.
That was the thing with Robin as well. I mean, he was like I was mentioning with Jim Varney and Don Novello. Robin was like notorious for give you one line as written and 50 lines of him just like going on.
There's an entire bonus feature on the.
My dad got to meet.
They had hours of stuff. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
No, sorry. My dad got to meet Robin because my dad worked at HBO for a very long time, and he did one of his comedy specials through there. So he told me like every nice thing people said about Robin was true. He showed up with like no entourage, just him, and he was he wanted to meet the meet the crew involved, know all their names. He cracked jokes. He was so nice. And when my dad was taking down the set later, he took down like a poster, and he happened to bump into Robin, and Robin thought he was coming up for an autograph. So he said, "Oh, do you want me to sign that for you?" And he did. And we still have it to this day.
Oh, that's nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say something, but I forgot, so I'll think about it for a minute.
Sorry, dude.
It's okay. It's a George Carlin special. I also feel like they probably made him say things he wouldn't say, but I don't know for sure because he's dead. But just based on what I know about his opinions,
yeah. I've read some of the jokes they came up with. It just felt like something anyone could say. So,
and you give it to George.
There's no
Carlin,
personality in it,
so it must be funnier.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've just been hearing like this last week, with the political season like going into full swing, that there are commercials and robocalls and things like that are done on AI to like mimic Joe Biden or mimic Kamala Harris, saying like offensive or incorrect things, and it's like, well, see, Joe Biden said you don't have to vote, and and it's like, it's like really concerning.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there are no specific rules about this, so people are like, hey, we can do whatever we want, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
gonna go forward with this, you gotta really come up like, some set of ground rules at least,
Yeah.
yeah.
some good
Well,
ethics
and
about
somebody
it.
made the point is like, you can't depend on Congress, because they can barely like set the clock on their VCRs, and you want them to legislate on AI, which they have absolutely zero understanding.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
they can't be trusted with this, not because they're devious or evil, which they are, but just they don't understand it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're still in MySpace territory. So,
Yeah.
when it comes to social media, and
And
now, technology is like, it's beyond a lot of these guys who
Yeah.
are in their 70s and 80s.
I mean, Florida's trying to pass bills to ban, teenagers from being on social media because they're scared of it, the power
Yeah.
of it. And
Yeah. Which I mean is understandable because there's a lot of stuff on the internet that teenagers probably shouldn't see at that age. So,
Sure.
Yeah. There's
And
also. Oh, go
And
ahead.
to be fair, it's gotten better over the years. I was mentioning like in early days of Atlantis, we go online, there was crazy shit online then, and it was like, it was Wild West.
Yeah.
It was like
Mm.
there was no regulation and no oversight or anything, which is why they've been talking about it for the last 20 years, trying to put some guidelines in place.
Yes,
But
I remember when I was very young, I I don't think it was Google. Google was around, but there were other search engines as well that weren't buried by Google quite yet. Looking for like videos of Disney rides, so I searched Disney ride videos and I got something else.
yeah.
Oh no.
oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ugh.
teddy bears was one that, if a friend, Chris Bailey, the Disney director, he was searching for teddy bears for his kids and came up with something else. So,
Yeah.
Mm. And thank God for Safe Search.
Yeah.
right, which didn't exist at some point. It's weird,
Yeah.
It's like you think of these things like, oh, of course. It's like, nope, this had to come about because of an incident. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
mm-hmm. One too many incidents, probably. So
Yeah.
many incidents and possibly lawsuits. I always like the ones,
Yeah.
when people post online signs, like warning signs or warning labels, and you go,
Yeah.
what the hell happened to necessitate this? Like,
Well, on
Yeah.
the Sky Ride, some people were switching cars, so they need to put a sign saying to stay in the car.
Yeah.
right, right.
I think that's why why they closed the Sky Ride, because too many people were doing. I mean, that's one reason.
Yeah.
At Disneyland,
Yeah.
I have memories of that. We got back in the day, back in the late 70s, high schools would go there, and they probably still do. They would go
Yeah.
there for grad night.
Mhm.
All these, they would close it down to the public, and just like hundreds and hundreds of buses of graduating students would show up, and just like run amok in the park.
Yeah.
And we got caught smoking weed in the train. there was a guard stationed in the Matterhorn and saw us lighting up, and they were waiting for us.
ugh.
No.
We weaseled out of it, but it was like, oh, wow,
Mm.
I got to do that again.
All right. Well,
Mm.
I may want to go soon to figure out what I'm gonna do for dinner.
Yeah.
This was really nice.
Yeah.
Thank you for agreeing to this, Gary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an honor to talk to you, man.
It
pleasure.
really was, Gary. Again, I mean, you can tell by the shirt, Beauty and the Beast is one of my favorite movies of all time, if not